Coming to you live from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to Africa Focus, where we bring you news from across the continent right here on Switch TV Kenya. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Start interacting with us on our social media platforms Switch TV Kenya at Joel Chacha M on Twitter and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Chacha. Send in an SMS via 111 444 111. But first, here are stories making headlines. Sudanese authorities confiscated a large amount of explosive materials, including the same compound that caused a catastrophic explosion in Lebanon last month. A new round of protests by a movement opposing Guinean President Alpha Conde's controversial bid for a third term in elections to be launched. Foreign nationals in South Africa suffer routine harassment, violence and discrimination by locals and government authorities, according to Human Rights Watch. Kicking off the bulletin, foreign nationals in South Africa suffer routine harassment, violence and discrimination by locals and government authorities, according to Human Rights Watch, that is HRW. The group said xenophobia remained widespread in South Africa despite a government action plan rolled out in May 2019 to combat intolerance.
Foreign workers are often victims of anti-immigrant sentiment in South Africa, the continent's most industrialized economy, where they compete against local for jobs, particularly in low-skilled sectors. A Bangladeshi shop owner stated that his business was ransacked during a bout of xenophobic violence last year. He was then forced to stand guard at the looted premises for 3 days without sleep before police eventually intervened. Foreigners sometimes suffer verbal and physical harassment in their daily interactions with locals. A common insult in South Africa is kwere, a word that means foreigner. Xenophobic attacks left at least 62 people dead in 2008, while another 7 were killed by similar unrest in 2015. Violence flared again in September last year when armed mobs descended on foreign-owned businesses in and around financial hub Johannesburg. The ensuing clashes left at least 12 people dead, of whom 10 were South African, according to the government. The Home Affairs Department did not respond to requests for comment. South Africa has long been a magnet for economic migrants searching for better job prospects in the region. The country attracts people from neighboring Lesotho, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Others come from even further afield, including Congo, Ethiopia, Malawi, Nigeria and South Asia. South Africa plays host to more than 2.2 million foreigners, ranging from political refugees and economic migrants to skilled workers, according to the last population census in 2011.
Shifting gears now on politics, former Ivorian President Henry Konan Bedi calls for civil disobedience in response to President Alassane Ouattara's bid for controversial third term at the helm of Ivory Coast. Bedi is one of the only remaining 3 challengers to Ouattara after 40 others who will be candidates were disqualified by the Electoral Commission.
Tensions ratcheted up over Ivory Coast presidential race on Sunday when former President Konan Bedi called for civil obedience in response to Alassane Ouattara's bid for that term at the helm of the West African country.
Faced with forfeiture, a single irreversible phrase, civil disobedience.
Ouattara had said in March that he will not seek a third term, but made a U-turn just 4 months later when his preferred successor, Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly, died of a heart attack. Bedi, Gbagbo and Ouattara have dominated Ivorian politics for a quarter of a century.
We are here today, political parties, political platforms, trade unions and civil society, to express our fierce opposition to this violation of the fundamental law, the Constitution.
Some observers fear a return to the levels of violence that claimed 3,000 lives following the 2010 presidential vote. The conflict was sparked when Gbagbo, the then president, refused to cede to the victor Ouattara, upending Ivory Coast's reputation as a bastion of democracy in the region. Kennedy Kimani, Switch TV.
A movement opposing Guinean President Alpha Conde's controversial bid for a third term in elections next month announced that it will launch a new round of protests from late September. Deadly clashes erupted in the West African state last year over 82-year-old Conde's plans.
The deadly clashes erupted in the West African state last October, claiming several dozen lives over Conde's plans. He is contesting the October 18 polls despite accusations of sidestepping limits on presidential terms by pushing through changes to the constitution. Guinea is one of Africa's most volatile countries, enjoying little stability between coups since independence from France in 1958. Conde is a former opposition figure who was jailed under previous regimes. He became the country's first democratically elected president in 2010 and was re-elected for a second time in 2015. But critics say he has become increasingly authoritarian, resorting to crackdowns to quell dissent and pushing through changes to the constitution validated in a referendum that he argues has reset the two-term counter to zero. Sanogo's statement was issued in the name of anti-code coalition called the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution (FNDC), said the third term will be legal and illegitimate. 12 candidates have been authorized to take part in the elections. The announcement of the protest came just hours after Conde declared that anti-coronavirus measures imposed in March, which include restrictions on public gatherings, will be extended for another month. Andrew Carroll, Switch TV.
Away from that, Sudanese authorities nabbed a large amount of explosive materials, including same compound that caused a catastrophic explosion in Lebanon last month. Sudan is currently led by a transitional government which took power months after the April 2019 oust of long-term President Omar al-Bashir.
Sudanese authorities on Wednesday say they had arrested 41 people for possessing a large amount of explosive materials, including a compound similar to that which caused a massive explosion in Lebanon last month.
These dangerous materials are now kept in a safe place with the Rapid Support Forces. Forensic evidence analysis has been carried out and specific results have been reached stating that these explosives are dangerous and could destroy the entire capital. The measures continued in the form of about 18 ambushes which unveiled the existence of dangerous explosives, including TNT and ammonium nitrate, the same material that exploded in Beirut port.
Sudan is currently led by a transitional government which took power months after the April 2019 ouster of long-term President Omar al-Bashir.
There's smuggling happening. Let's not put our heads in the sand. There's a smuggling process for these materials from official authorities because these explosives cannot come out and reach the general public if the situation is under control.
The government has vowed to rebuild the economy, beleaguered by decades of US sanctions and internal conflict under Bashir's rule. But the country has continued to suffer severe economic hardship, which played a key role in triggering the unprecedented anti-Bashir protest in December. Kennedy Kimani, Switch TV.
Away from that, floods fill the streets of Nouakchott in Mauritania after torrential overnight rains, leaving entire neighborhoods isolated and halting cars on the roads. Drivers are struggling to pick up clients and informal sector workers have resigned themselves to staying at home due to lack of transportation.
The Sahel, the vast region that stretches along the Sahara's southern rim from the Atlantic to the Red Sea, is on the front line of climate change. Its extreme vulnerability to drought and shifting rainfall patterns is ratcheting up problems of poverty, population pressure, and jihadist violence, experts say.
The roads were flooded. There are no more taxis. People are no longer able to reach their workplaces. We are there, sitting, doing nothing.
Since the start of the Industrial Revolution, global temperatures have risen to 1.1 degrees Celsius, according to a report issued in September by United in Science, gathering the world's leading climate agencies.
Here, look at the water. This is the water that came to our door and entered our room. The state must find a solution to the water. This year, a lot of water has fallen here.
More recently, it has seen dramatic changes in rainfall patterns, with torrential downpours that cause temporary spats in vegetation in scorched areas. Rainfall on average is higher than 30 years ago, but much of it comes in the form of more extreme events, said the Jeremy Pandhu, a climatologist at the University of Grenoble, Alpes, who is working with Amakach, a specialized meteorological department in West Africa. Amina Hussein, Switch TV.
Meanwhile, thousands of Angolan Christians have participated in an open-air mass in Luanda as churches reopened for the first time in almost 6 months due to the coronavirus pandemic. Religious gatherings were banned in March when Angola's government imposed restrictions to help curb the spread of coronavirus. So far, COVID-19 has infected more than 3,900 people in Angola and killed at least 147 to date.
At least 3,000 parishioners dressed in white gathered at the Church of our Lord Jesus Christ in the World, also known as the Turquoise Church. They sat on chairs arranged around a meter apart for an open-air service at the mega church in the Gulf 2 suburb. The service lasted 90 minutes, much shorter than the traditional 5 hours.
6 months later? Oh yes. It's been a long time, especially for us Christians. It seems like 5-6 years have passed. Not 6 months. We are finally here to celebrate our immense joy.
We celebrate this with a big commemoration. As we can't enter the church, we have gathered outside to avoid catching COVID-19. It is a great idea to be outside, and nothing will stop us from praying. Whether it rains or snows, we will pray.
Face masks on and Bibles in hand, parishioners orderly file one at a time into the church complex through a gate. Except for choir members, the worshippers sang hymns with their masks on and waved white handkerchiefs.
Because of the coronavirus pandemic, and thanks be to God, it is a great day to reopen our worship services, and we celebrate this with our God. But we must finally show our people how to behave in the face of this situation. You heard my message during the prayer. Let us not panic, but let us have courage and strength.
The churches are now under strict instructions by the government to wear face masks and gather in well-ventilated spaces to limit the spread of the virus. Kennedy Kimani, Switch TV.
At a time when the coronavirus pandemic is wreaking havoc on businesses around the world, the film industry in Nigeria's mainly Muslim north is going from strength to strength. The region's movie machine, dubbed Kannywood after its largest city, Kano, has become the dominant source of entertainment for West Africa's 80 million Hausa speakers. And Netflix, Kannywood's a fledgling online streaming platform, has seen its client base soar since authorities imposed lockdowns to contain the coronavirus pandemic in March.
Okay, the idea behind floating Netflix is to solve a problem, which I mentioned, 3 main problems: accessibility, piracy, and quality of the content produced, and of course, to make money. Now, I tell you, we have a lot of people, being a high net worth individual, middle class people, and even low income earners. Those that are a fan of the Hausa film industry, they are subscribing to our platform and they are having access to watch any content they want to watch. So we felt the need to switch immediately to subscription during COVID. We felt a lot of people were trooping onto the app, and immediately we switched to subscription. So Alhamdulillah, to God be the glory. We'll say COVID was a blessing to Netflix.
So many people have phone now. So it's very, very easy for you to watch your movies through your phone. So from the introduction of like Netflix to the industry is another added advantage.
It now makes us as movie makers from the northern part of Nigeria to up our game, because it makes us to understand that our major clients, our major audience from the northern part of Nigeria are moving to stream.
Since the coronavirus pandemic struck the country in mid-March this year, many sectors were highly affected, as some had to halt their businesses or activities, while others had to completely close down their businesses. The tourism industry is no exception. Activities at museums have been resumed for the past 2 weeks as business gradually returns. Andrew Kero visited the Snake Park in National Museum and filed the following story.
Silas Isabwe is a snake handler at the Kenya National Park here in Nairobi. Isabwe tells us how the situation has been since COVID-19. Following the government's directive and the Ministry of Health guidelines to avoid public gatherings, the museum had to be closed for months.
Because, this is a government institution. Therefore, we were surviving on the allocated budget from the treasury. Yes. Remember that, the tourists are not coming in, therefore we were collecting nothing. Yes.
We were affected. Yes, we were affected, but we don't dwell on that. We are dwelling on how people can heal. Because museum, basically, it is a place of therapy, because it will encourage dialogue, and that's what the public need right now, after the long closure.
Collection of revenue for the park was halted since tourists were not allowed to visit the park. After the reopening, the number of tourists coming to see snakes is gradually rising.
So now we are very happy because it has been opened. Things are still the same, the animals, the snakes, everything is still the same. So I want to encourage people to come and attend.
For those who fear snakes, Isabwe narrates that the danger of snake bite depends on the environment.
Damu inaweza toka ama iache, inalingana imekuuma bite inakaje. Inaweza uma ishikilie hadi kutoa ukinyang'ana ni kama huku.
These are measures that can be taken to avoid snake bites, according to snake experts.
If you have anything tied on your body like wristwatch or tight fitting clothes, it's good to loosen them so that you have ease yourself. Okay. Then you have to rush to the nearest health facility. Don't ever suck in the name that you want to get off the venom, because you might as well be affected. And then don't let that person drink anything like water or milk. Don't allow the patient to drink anything or to take anything, because when you eat, your metabolism rate is higher, digestion also, therefore your blood pressure increases, therefore the worst also might.
Most people perceive snakes to be venomous, but only about that percent who are poisonous. The rest are not. It's therefore wise to have a positive mindset towards snakes, for they play a key role in our ecosystem. Andrew Kero, Switch TV, at National Museums of Kenya in Nairobi.
My director, Sazamunga, says she has a phobia for snakes, and actually she was weighing in my earpiece. Time to take a breather. Stay with us here on Africa Focus. Still to come. Tunisian families set sail for Europe. Welcome back to Africa Focus. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Moving on, leaders of the ruling military junta and ex-officials attended the funeral of former Malian dictator Moussa Toure at a state funeral in Bamako. Toure, who ruled Mali for 22 years before being deposed in a 1991 coup, died at the age of 83 in the capital on September 15th.
Mali held a state funeral for ex-dictator Moussa Traoré on Friday, attended by the head of the ruling military junta and other former leaders of the Sahel state, according to journalists.
He was a good person, a real man, as they say in the Bambara language. If you're a military, you know it. He was not afraid. he spoke the truth, and he liked to hear the truth. If I'm here to pay tribute to him, I'm not allowed to lie.
Traoré, who ruled Mali for 22 years before being deposed in a 1991 coup, died at age 83 in the capital Bamako on September 15th. The former autocrat was buried at a Bamako military camp where the funeral band played on the arrival of its coffin, which was draped in the Malian flag.
May Allah help this country to get out of this impasse. That was his will. May the good Lord make that there be born patriotic men like him, who will be like him, men ready to do anything for this country. That is what this country needs. Men disregarding everything and ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for the country.
In recent years, the ex-dictator was increasingly seen as an elder statesman in the notoriously unstable country, with politicians soliciting his advice. In attendance was the head of Mali's ruling military junta, Colonel Assimi Goita, part of a group of young officers who launched a coup, ousting President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta on August 18th. Former President Amadou Tomini Toure, who deposed Traoré in the 1991 coup, was also among the mourners alongside other ex-leaders.
A quote-unquote, either we will die together or we'll make it to Europe. The Hoji family has seen a loved ones drown in the perilous crossing of the Mediterranean and twice failed to leave Tunisia, but they remain determined to escape. A growing number of families are taken to the sea in the hope of finding prospects elsewhere. In some areas of Tunisia, unemployment exceeds 30%.
The second time we have attempted the illegal crossing. The second time they detained my husband. They have threatened me with prison, even though I need someone to be with my son at all times. No one can take care of him, and I have 6 children who live a vulnerable life. They are deprived of everything. Believe me, they're deprived of everything. I have not done anything. I have not sinned. I have not stolen a boat. I have not stolen a motor. I have not stolen anything. I only stole the sea. It's true, I stole the sea. I went to the sea and I left and I handed myself over to God. I know families who live very well in Italy. They provide everything their children need. They give them a house to live in and put their children in school. They don't say no to me. There are people who have called me to tell me to bring my son back to Italy so they can help and support me in Italy.
There are about 90 to 100 Tunisian families who have migrated illegally to the Italian coasts. The causes that favored this wave of migration are that Tunisia, before the coronavirus pandemic, was undergoing a major economic and social crisis. This pandemic accentuated the precariousness of most disadvantaged. These families have found themselves even more affected by the economic and social situation, an uncertain future, and the deterioration of public services. These families are no longer against the migration of their children. On the contrary, they are financing their migration plans. This change has manifested itself this year through the participation of the whole family in this migration process.
And now focus to the corridors of justice. 4 Cameroonian soldiers were sentenced to 10 years in prison for the execution-style killings of 2 women and their children, one of them a baby, in a region where the army is fighting jihadists.
We should not get a legal provision in our procedural code which states that the allegations of one co-accused against another can only be valid if they are confronted by other evidence. It is for this reason that we believe that there was, at the very least, some doubt.
That's all we had on Africa Focus today, but keep the conversation going on our social media platforms at Switch TV Kenya, at Joel Chacha M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya. My name is Joel Chacha, and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Until next time, do have yourself a great day.